I saved the whole sect by playing badly. Chapter 32. Thanks to asking swordsman for the gift. Facing Song Jian's provocation, Mu Chongshi's fingertips turned slightly white, but he was powerless to refute. Changming Sect, the last of the 5 sects. Every year, the grand competition is Countdown, and the disciples of the Changming Sect will be ridiculed by the other 4 sects when they go out. The label of Countdown to 10,000 years is firmly attached to all the disciples of Changmingzong. Are you counting down? Yi Qiao repeated, and then she blinked lightly, determined for no reason. This year will definitely be different. Song Jian laughed angrily. What's the difference? She was not annoyed, and said confidently, because I am here this year. Song Jian. Silence is Cambridge tonight. After Song Jian was stunned for a moment, he couldn't help covering his mouth and laughing. Why are you so confident? Even Yi Qing'an was not sure that this year's number 1 must be Janjianzong, but a foundation builder dared to speak wild words, and all the disciples of Janjianzong were amused. The corners of Yun Qiu's lips could not help but twitched, sympathizing with her ignorantly. Senior sister, it's better not to say such things in front of so many people, so as not to be ridiculed for not knowing the heights of the sky and the earth. Different from the psychology of other people's ridicule, Duan Hengdao even thought about how to deal with Yi Qiao when Dabi encounters him in the future. Others didn't take Yi Qiao seriously, but he always had the illusion that the opponent could turn the game upside down. Mu Chongshi raised his eyes in surprise, met Yi Qiao's gaze, and slightly clenched the sword in his hand. He didn't know if he was infected by her words or something, and he grinned and said, "You ask why we are so confident." The young man drew his sword out of its sheath, and the ground was covered with frost and cold. Except for the sword in Yi Qing'an's hand that didn't move for a moment, the long sword around the waist of the disciple of the swordsmanship sect trembled. Mu Chongshi's voice was clear and bright. They're all born with sword bones. Why do you think we are confident? There are 2 kendo geniuses in the comprehension world, one Yi Qing'an and the other Mu Chongshi, but Mu Chongshi is young and overwhelmed in terms of cultivation. But in terms of talent, who is more noble than whom? The inner disciples who were still laughing at swordsman asking Zong gradually fell silent. Mu Chongshi took a deep breath, stood with Yi Qiao, and leaned carelessly to the side. Isn't it the number 1? Since you are participating, you must be number 1. He found that after staying with Yi Qiao for a long time, people will gradually become more confident. In the beginning, when Mu Chongshi met other Zong Tianzhao, he always thought of patience and low self-esteem. Now, Kendo number 1, TSK, it's even worse than me. Everyone in swordsmanship sect, they were very angry, but they couldn't refute. The cultivation world is all owned by Mu Qiang. Mu Chongshi's 16-year-old golden core is strong enough to make most people shut up. Even Song Jian, who is habitually picky, can't refute. Is the natal sword trembling in despair? Mu Chongshi's move completely gambled on their mouths. Yi Qing'an's eyebrows and eyes were slightly light. Then see you in Dabi. He looked at the 2 with a meaningful tone. I look forward to your performance in the game. Having said that, it is not difficult to hear the arrogance and provocation in the words. Yi Qiao raised her eyes to meet his gaze impartially. Without any fear, she smiled and said, "See you, Dabi." Unlike Yun Qiu's softness, the 15-year-old girl has clear eyebrows and eyes, without the slightest timidity. Noticing that Yi Qing'an's eyes fell on Yi Qiao, Yun Qiu suddenly lowered his eyes with some displeasure, and whispered, "Second senior sister, master and I miss you very much. When will you come back to the sect with us?" Second senior sister. Song Jian looked at the 2 of them. Do you know each other? Yunk belonged to the Yuqing sect, right? How did these 2 sects know each other? Yun Qiu looked naive. Senior sister was picked up and raised by master when she was young, but something happened later. second senior sister left the sect in a fit of anger. As the saying goes, filial piety is the first thing to do, and one day is a teacher and a lifelong father. This saying is also useful in the realm of comprehension. Abandoning the master who was raised since childhood, and running to other sects, what is this kind of behavior not a white-eyed wolf? Immediately, everyone condemned Yi Qiao with a look of scum. The next second, the sword shadow flashed, and the expression on Yun Qiu's face froze. She was swept by the sword energy, took 2 steps back uncontrollably and knocked to the ground. Bloody air welled up in her throat. Even though Yi Qing'an quickly removed most of the sword energy, Yun Qiu was still startled, jumping and sitting on the ground. The hem of the skirt was stained with mud, embarrassed. The culprit, Mu Chongxi, stared at her with a big grin, showing a bright smile. Junior sister Yun. My little junior sister didn't hit you today because she has qualities. And I hit you today. He hooked his lips and smiled. It's because I have no quality. Everyone. Your Changming sect understands quality. If you are not convinced, let Yue Qingzong fight with me. Whose junior sister is not a treasure? Asking Sword sect has junior sisters, and their sect finally got one. Mu Chongxi is a straight man who can't understand the so-called T language. He only heard that Yun Qiu rubbed secretly and wanted to poach his little sister. The junior sister asked her to return to Yue Qingzong. How about that? So Mu Chongxi, who couldn't bear it anymore, did it. Yi Qiao. Wow tilde, to be honest, the 4th senior brother is quite handsome when he is not sand sculpting. That sword was too sudden, and there was no killing intent, so even Yi Qing'an couldn't react immediately. The young man helped Yun Qiu up, and there was a bit of coldness in his eyes, but Yi Qing'an had brains after all, and now he and Yun Qiu are only at the stage of having a good impression, and this vague good feeling is not worth it with him and his elder brother. Mingzong drew his sword and faced each other. Looking at the indifferent Yi Qing'an, Yun Qiu finally couldn't control it anymore and cried out loud. Mu Chongxi covered her ears. It's coming again. There is no end. Yun Qiu was crying with pear blossoms in the rain. Even those who were as cold as sword asking Zong couldn't help but want to step forward to comfort them. After all, it's rare for a beauty to cry. Seeing that she had nothing to do, Yi Qiao simply sat on the ground and studied the stick in her hand with Duan Hengdao. The 3 of them muttered together for a long time, but they didn't see why. That treasure-hunting beast Yunk likes this stick so much. There is definitely something weird about it. Duan Hengdao was thoughtful. I can't tell what kind of material it is made of. I guess the treasure-hunting beast may also come looking for the smell of this stick. Let me engrave a sealing spell for you first, in case it will be a disaster if you really attract any big monsters. Yi Qiao sincerely thanked her. No wonder Cheng Fengong is rich. Who wouldn't like such an all-round craftsman? As the sky darkened, Duan Hengdao fiddled with adding runes on the stick. Mu Chongxi chose to meditate and practice. Each had something to do. Yi Qiao calculated the time. How many days is the longest time in the secret realm? For the big secret realm, the time is shorter, 5 days. Isn't that going to end tomorrow? She blinked. Hey, I'm quite happy. Duan Hengdao couldn't complain. Isn't that right? She is indeed quite happy. Only Yue Qingzong's injured world was achieved. They all came to hunt for treasure, but Song Qing'an and his group got a lot of hate points for doing nothing. The key point is that he still doesn't know who did it. Miserable tilde. But it's really cool to follow Yi Qiao. You just need to pick up the leaks in the whole process. Hey. Why doesn't their sect have such a junior sister?